Hi, Marc.
You were supposed to call me when you land.
Someone here.
What?
Oh my God, they got a
Carlos!
They're coming.
All right, listen to me. Go to the next bedroom, under the bed. Tell me when you're there. Now, the next part is very important. They're going to take you. I don't know who you are. I don't know what you want. If you're looking for ransom, I can tell you I don't have money. But what I do have are a very particular set of skills. Skills I've acquired over a very long career. Skills that make me a nightmare for people like you.
Where are they?
If you let Shawn go now, that'll be the end of it.
You have a 96-hour
What?
to never finding her.
No.
But if you don't, I will look for you.
Where is she?
I will find you. I will kill you.
You ass interrogator, try to bring her out of my face. It's gone.
What are you doing?
That is not paid for by them. That is paid for by the people of Detroit.
You might be qualified, ML.
I'm not qualified for this job.
Let me tell you something. You want to go right now? Okay? You want to go right now?
Hey kids, it's your old pal ML Elric coming to you this time without my Northern Irish lilt. And I'm pleased to report that my threats to Shawn's captors were persuasive because he was released unharmed, although it may seem very soon like he suffered some sort of head trauma because I'm not sure that he's going to be making complete sense. But he is back with us, the one, the only, Shawn Xavier Windsor. Thank you for being with us, Shawn.
Hey, buddy. Hey, buddy. I just want to quote him right before we started. I don't know how much I can bring y'all today. Like, oh, great. Yeah. Great energy level.
Shawn is like cold fusion. Before the show, we put some water in a styrofoam cup, and there's unlimited energy, and then the green light goes on, and we can't replicate it. It's a feat that defies physics.
I don't know that there was much energy before the green light went on either today.
That's my point, yeah.
And of course, he continues to be a shameless self-promoter. And Marc Fellhauer, who's always here, he's sort of like...
No energy.
The tax man.
No, Mark's missed a few shows.
Thanks for selling him out.
Jeez, nice throwing me under the bus.
No,
Shawn,
I mean, it's okay,
Shawn just
though.
came to dime out Marc.
No, I just remember what it felt like when it was just me and Mike. It was,
Nice?
it was very nice, actually.
Oh, okay, great.
Wow.
A little romantic.
Well,
All right.
It's always nice to have Joe in control because he's got a strong, steady hand.
We did have a capitalism disagreement before the show, though. So you do have something to bring today, I'll tell you that much, with the topic.
Well, capitalism is a perfect segue into our guest, which is Mr. J.C. Reindl of the Detroit Free Press, one of our outstanding colleagues who has been trying to make sense out of what's going on with the Hudson site, with the District Detroit, with billionaires asking peasants for millions to help make their dreams come true, which, if they came true, might be worth the investment, but they somehow never quite seem to get there. So JC's going to answer some questions for us after posting a story this morning that has a really simple title, and one that I think we're going to appreciate is more details emerge for $1.5 billion District Detroit build-out and incentives. And even with the new details, we still have some questions. So we're going to get to JC in just a minute. But first, we want to thank the people who make this show possible and who make it possible for you to have some dreams of building something special. Perhaps it's a new home. Perhaps it's refinancing your home. That would be David Hall of Hall Financial. Or Luke Nowacki of Pinnacle Wealth Strategies, who can help you build a financial strategy so that when it's time for you to retire, you can do so with confidence and comfort and know that, yeah, you may not be building downtown and begging for massive tax incentives, but you can support yourself like a regular person instead of like a billionaire who somehow can't quite seem to balance the books. I don't know. I seem to think they have a lot of accountants there.
You're always dividing. By the way, that was nice, though. Did you write that, or is this off the top of your head?
What's that?
Everything you just said.
It's from the heart, Shawn.
Is it from the heart?
It's from the heart.
Really, that was touching.
It's I think
Way to undermine it.
Right through that one ventricle, it's a little constricted. But if you're watching the show, you'll see JC joining us on YouTube or on Facebook. We love it when you subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is ML Soul of Detroit. You can post comments. You can sign up for alerts so you always know when we go live, because it is a bit of a wild card there. And you can also post comments to Facebook, where we'll try and get to them as we can throughout the show. But it's time for our star, JC Reindl, who is an outstanding reporter, someone who has the wherewithal to cut through the fog and bring to us some common sense about some really important issues, because these guys are looking for, JC's at like $600 million in incentives this time?
More than that, it comes out to $800 million, roughly, if you count all the different tranches of incentives that are being requested.
And so out of $1.5 billion, how much are they actually going to spend?
Yeah, they have some equity. They intend to contribute over $600 million in equity, but a lot of the development, $1.5 billion, a lot of that will be paid for with subsidies, over 35 years. But that is what they total up to, is about $800 million.
And so they put in $600 million of their own money, or are they putting in $1.5 billion and we're going to give them some of it back? Because I'm always confused about these big numbers, because I know when I went to go buy a house, I had to put a lot of my own money into it, and there was nobody who was going to help me make my dreams come true.
Yeah, the equity that they are putting into it should be a little over 655 million. That number was just reported yesterday for the first time. It's in some of the development documents, but also a portion of that is, I believe, some of that could be, there are some questions. Some of that could be bank loans, or the bank loans could be kind of on top of their equity. That is still a question mark, since a lot of these documents that are submitted, they're not written for the general public. It's generally developer to developer, developer to public official. So there is a lot of questions still about the financing, but the number, the official equity number, which they intend to contribute, is 655 million of the $1.5 billion project. And there's going to be some bank lending as part of that. Again, kind of figuring exactly what the capital stack, as they say, that hasn't been shared yet, as far as I know.
JC, can you just give us a little bit of context for the listener, what this project is? I know the ultimate goal is 10 buildings around the district of Detroit, and then also some context of how it's kind of languished for a while.
This is essentially right? District Detroit 2.0. The first version came out, was announced back in 2014. A lot of colorful renderings for the development was going to happen around the new Little Caesars Arena. And as we all know, that opened in 2017, and not much of the arena district, not much of District Detroit opened up at the same time. So the Ilitch organization did take a lot of criticism with the pace of development. Since then, to be fair, we have had some development that did rise up next to the arena. The old Eddie Stone Hotel, that's now open, mostly market rate housing, and it's all filled up very, very quickly in about a year. And there is that new office building next to the arena. You have a law firm, Boston Consulting Group too, and then you have Google, which is right next to the arena. But initially there was a lot of renderings for more apartment towers, a lot of adaptive reuse of historic buildings in the Cass corridor. A lot of that did not happen. And this is District Detroit 2.0. And what's different now is that the Ilitch organization, their Olympia development, has teamed up with Stephen Ross, who's a Detroit native and a mega developer from New York, did the Hudson Yards project over there. And so he has a very good track record. And they propose to do 10 total buildings, six new ones and 4 historic rehabs. And they're going to be building out District Detroit and finishing a lot of what was announced the first time that didn't materialize.
JC, I'm an idiot, so a lot of the numbers just kind of fly by my head. But all I know is that what was built wasn't what they promised to build, and yet there's no way to get any of the money back that they were given from the public. Why is that, and why can't that be changed for the next development that they won't complete the way they say they're going to?
Yeah, for the 1.0, the District of Detroit, the first version, they actually did legally comply with what they were supposed to do. They had a benchmark for how much, I think the term was ancillary development, around the arena. It was set fairly low, one could say. And they even got to include the new Little Caesars headquarters, with the pizza windows, which is not next to the arena. It's downtown, not too far away. But that got to be included too. I think there were some parking decks that got to be included. So legally, they fulfilled all their obligations the first time around. Nevertheless, the perception, public perception generally is that they failed to complete the full vision. And so this time around, and also to go back, the first time they did get a lot of public financing for the arena, and so now they are seeking some more this time. But a lot of these projects, would be the way it's going to work out. A lot of it is tax increment financing, which means that the subsidy, essentially the buildings would pay for themselves, where all the new taxes that would be generated, a lot of the new taxes that would be generated would go towards, the development team, that duo being the Olympia Development and related companies. There would be some over that capture, according to the projections. There would be a net fiscal benefit, to the city of Detroit and to the state taxpayers. But it's not like they're going to be writing a big check to the developers, or they get a lot of cash. They do get some cash. There was a deal with the DDA where they are reimbursed $25 million for making some infrastructure improvements, and they have a $24 million 1% interest loan, which is nice. That's to help make some of the housing more affordable.
Yeah.
But a lot of the bulk of the subsidies is not like a welfare check, corporate welfare check, but it is tax increment financing, which is complex, but essentially works out to be that this is money that no one would be getting anyway unless the developments were finished.
Well, a lot of it's based on these projections, as you mentioned, that are going to be bringing in a bigger tax base and better paying jobs. But show me one. Well, don't show me one because you probably do have one. It seems like they never really fulfill these projections. The projections seem to be pie in the sky numbers and the amount of money that it's going to be brought in, especially with stadiums. I know this isn't a stadium, but it's right next to it. But where do these numbers come from, and why are they always so far off?
Yeah, that's a good observation. I agree with you. And for the projections for this project, they did go with an outside firm, a consultant firm, and that was a requirement as part of what's called a transformative brownfield. They had to choose an outside firm to do these projections, and essentially the benefit for the city in terms of new tax revenue, the benefit for the state in terms of new tax revenue, a lot of that is projected based upon the jobs that are going to be created. By one, the construction of all these 10 buildings, and two, when you fill them up with new commercial tenants, new office tenants, 2 new hotels, and a lot of residential buildings there. And so that's the economic projections for the impact are based upon what they think is going to be happening once they're built. They're all filled up.
JC, is the capacity based on being at 100% capacity?
Yeah, I think for sometimes that has been the case. There was a transformative brownfield for Gilbert's Bedrock that is assuming kind of 100% filled. I believe for the office buildings for District Detroit, I believe it's 90% occupancy is what they're expecting. And I did a story, right before the new year, speaking to some experts in commercial real estate and offices. And there is a question mark too. Now we're post-COVID. There's a lot of remote work, a lot of hybrid work. People aren't coming to the office every day. Some people from the suburbs who used to work in Detroit, 5 days a week, they no longer have to pay their city income tax. They don't come into the city as much as they used to. So there is a question mark, I think, if one or all these new office buildings, and there's about 4 of these 10 buildings are going to be new office buildings. Will they all be filled up with tenants? And would those would those tenants all have their workforce there like it's 2019, 5 days a week, or could a lot of them be remote and therefore they don't pay the city income tax? And I guess they wouldn't be going to lunch at Potbelly or whatever else is around. So those are some open questions.
Well, this is one of the things that concerns me with tax increment financing. And in theory, it's a great idea, right? You have a piece of land that's bringing in little to no tax dollars. You take a financial risk to build something there, which creates value, which would drive up the tax bill, but you divert some of that tax money to the project to help support the project, to help mitigate the risk. And so while you don't get all the taxes that would be owed, you're getting more taxes than you would get if nothing had happened there. In theory, that's great. That makes sense to me. I can see that being a fair way to spur development. But if you end up building these projects and you anticipate all these things and people don't come downtown, or people work in the suburbs more and don't pay 100% of their city tax because they work from home several days a week, and those taxes don't go up, do we at some point have to dip into our pocket to make up the difference in the same way that we're now basically diverting taxpayer dollars to support the queue line because it didn't pan out the way people thought it would by now?
Yeah, I would say that my understanding of the way these deals work is that would not be a risk, that the public's going to have to make up a difference of some shortfall. Like you said, it is tax increment financing. And under that scenario, trying to think, who would get burned in a situation where, let's just say you build these, all 4 of the office buildings, the 4 of the 10 buildings, and no one wants to go in there. I'm trying to think of who would be burned in that situation. Some of the private lenders, they haven't been identified, but there is going to be some private, bank financing. They would probably be suffering. And I do know that from past transformative brownfields, if there's when the subsidy is approved for a very large number, if some of the projects kind of don't happen to this at the scale that was originally expected, there's still like a large number of subsidies that can be essentially taken, or taxes that can be captured from the buildings that were finished. And so let's just say only 9 or 8 of these buildings get built. But they were approved as if all 10 were going to be built. You potentially, no one suggested they're going to do this, but you potentially could shift some of those subsidies around, where you could take a larger reimbursement from some of the structures that were built. More money. Maybe only 8 of the 10 are built, so you take the subsidy from there. That, I believe, that's been done before. No one said that's what the 2 developers here would do, but that's also a possibility if a worst case scenario occurs and no one wants to fill up these buildings.
So that to me sounds like a little bit of the shaft for us, because if you're taking the full benefit but you don't create all the properties, then you're not generating all those taxes that you said you're going to create to have the taxes that you can draw upon. But let me go back to an issue that we hear all the time with these projects, is that the tax dollars that are being reinvested into the project, or that aren't being collected by government, the 100% of the taxes we're not going to get, that this is taking money away from schools and libraries. And we've heard these developers say, particularly in Hudson's, none of this was going to schools. It was all just downtown taxes. We've heard this over LCA. I imagine we're going to hear this in this project. Will any money that would be going to schools and libraries not be realized because of this plan?
Yeah, the way I understand it, that would not happen. The schools would not be affected. One, because the DDA district, Downtown Development Authority, their district includes the arena, and so that all that tax collection would be going to them anyway, like you said, not the schools. And I do know too, with the District Detroit 1.0, there was some school money that may have been impacted, but it was very complex, because around the same time that District Detroit was under construction, you also had the migration from DPS to Detroit Community District, and so some of that money, I think, went towards the old DPS, not the current schools. And I have spoken for past stories to current, Detroit school officials, and they said they haven't been impacted at all, by kind of what happened or didn't happen with the first District Detroit. So I think To be fair to some of the proponents, and those seeking these tax breaks, I think it is a true statement that the schools, aren't impacted by these developments.
What about for some of the buildings that are going to be apartments where you own them or just condos? Because then that would contribute to the millage, right? So,
yeah, I think they are
So that
seeking
would actually-
NBG tax breaks for some of these condos. That does give actually, and in this case, I believe that they've yet to really say there's going to be any condos. It's just apartments. There could be some condos, but they've yet to say that.
Because that would make a difference, right? If you just rent, you're not going to contribute to the school pot. But if you own, you would.
And one of the stipulations of this of these tax breaks, or at least the $24 million loan, JC, you write about with the 1% interest over 34 years, which I wish I could get a loan like that. Part of the stipulation is for affordable housing. Is that kind of a red herring, or does affordable housing actually exist in a lot of these new projects?
Yeah. So I'll address both those questions. The first one, when it comes to siphoning school monies, again, that doesn't happen in this case because even before all these developments happen, there's this DDA. This DDA has these boundaries that encompass most of downtown, including the new arena in the District of Detroit area, and so that money was already being siphoned and directed to the DDA. It wasn't going to the schools. So that means that this new development, when they're capturing a lot of that tax revenue via some of these tax breaks, it's not like they're capturing it from the schools, even for the residential buildings. And what was the second question again?
Oh, just how many of these affordable housing, how many actually get filled? Is this another thing where legally it's in there, but they don't really have to? I just feel like there's a lot of ambiguity in what they really need to fulfill. I mean, on the surface, it seems like, a family of four that makes $45,000 can move into one of these great new buildings. But does it happen, or is there another way they can weasel out of that?
Yeah, I think the tax breaks to make the housing more affordable, that appears to me, to be pretty legitimate. There are some real costs to constructing new buildings, new housing. And it's even been said at a meeting yesterday that in some cases, Detroit construction costs can be higher than bigger cities like Chicago, where they build big buildings all the time. In Detroit, we only have a couple going on, so you just don't have a lot of the savings and efficiencies of scale. And so there is a lot of costs involved in Detroit to build new housing. And the rents you can get in Detroit are just not the same as they would be in bigger cities. And so to make the housing more affordable, so Detroiters, who aren't making, pulling down big salaries at Rocket Mortgage can afford to live there. It does make sense that you would need to have these subsidies so the developer can, have some return on these projects. And some of the tax incentives here are geared to making that possible. And some of these, and that's pretty common too across housing in Detroit. And if we didn't have, tax breaks and incentives, we probably have a lot less housing, for Detroiters today.
Sure, it does seem to be a necessary evil, but boy, when you have billionaires coming back asking for more money when they don't deliver on the watercolors that we see publicly, it's bullshit. And one more follow up on that 1% loan over 34 years. Is that a common term that the DDA gives out to, I don't know, say I wanted to go build a building down there and I wanted that deal. Would I be able to get it, or does my last name have to be Gilbert or Illich or Ross? Yeah.
I think in this case, that is a unique arrangement. It's my understanding. And I think in this case, I can see how the DDA thought that request for the 1%, a $24 million loan, I can see how they thought that made sense, because you do have, two developers coming in, and they're going to not just build one building or two buildings, but it's multiple buildings. And these would be really nice new buildings, very, very high quality. And you're going to have, people of more modest means, could live in these new buildings. So I think my assumption is they saw this as a unique situation where it would make more sense, to let these developers, have this special loan in ways that it might not make sense for, like a line of developers who just want to have a one-off building do the same thing. So I can kind of see why they saved it for this project rather than handing it out to any developer that knocks on their door.
It does make sense that if we've decided as a society, and I don't know we've really had this conversation, that Detroit's comeback should not just be reserved for the people who can afford top dollar places. That if we want people downtown not just to be new Detroiters who make six-figure incomes, that we have to make some space for people who may work in some of the buildings, not as an executive, but as someone who may be cleaning the buildings, that the developer, the owner, is sacrificing potential income. So I understand a subsidy in that case because we think there's a higher purpose, and I'm going to buy into that conversation.
Incentives and subsidies. I mean, yeah, there's a reason they exist to incentivize them to do something. But at this level, it just stinks. Sorry, Emma.
No, it's okay. The real question I have is how do they decide which low-income folks qualify? Is it somebody whose brother is on a commission or whose mom sits in a council seat or whatever? So that's where I kind of say, okay, it's a good idea, but let's see how they execute it. But of all the numbers that fly around in JC's story, and there are a lot of them,
yeah.
and he does a real good job of laying them out and breaking them down because there are a lot of different pots they're looking to pull money from or to recapture money from. The one that sticks out in my mind that I just cannot in any way make sense of is this line. If all 10 buildings get built and are successfully leased, the consultant forecast that nearly 5,800 permanent full-time equivalent jobs would be created, paying average incomes of $95,000 a year. Now, The reason I can't make sense of this is not because it's clearly written. Like everything JC does, it's very clean, it's very straightforward. But what the hell is this consultant talking about? Because 5,800 permanent jobs with an average salary of $95,000 a year. Have they specified what those jobs would be? Because that just seems inconceivable.
And when would they make this $95,000? Would it be at the end of the 34-year loan? Is that what they're measuring it by?
Yeah, that's I raised my eyebrows at that figure too. But that is indeed in the consultant's report. I actually had to check that 3 times because it just didn't seem right to me. But that is what they came up with, and a lot of those jobs, would be office jobs, hospitality jobs, and apparently they're expecting so many of these jobs that are high paying that it would average out and raise the average over, let's just say like a housekeeper job at some of the residential buildings, and that is actually really key when it comes to these economic impact projections. And we're seeing it here with District Detroit 2.0, as well as the Gilbert projects. A lot of those projections are all based upon the jobs that are created and the salaries that are created. And you do have an incentive for the developers to have really big numbers, for those things, because that helps, the headline number, for the impact is going to be bigger if you have, more people working there, making more money. And one thing too, which we reported on the past, which is kind of in that line too, is that it's also important, when the devil's in the detail when it comes to where these jobs are coming from, because this is only new jobs, net new creation. If these are new jobs being created, but for this development, they wouldn't occur. So one thing one has to be careful about is, let's just say you do have a company that's living in like a Class C older downtown building, kind of run down, and they want to really upgrade to one of these new buildings, and they just move over, all their workforce, let's just say 100 people, into the new building. Well, all those people who are the existing employees were currently paying their state income tax, their city income tax, and they move over to the new building, and then in the new building, with this, if this transformational brownfield subsidies approved for the district, a portion, I believe 50% of their state income taxes get to be captured by the developers. And there's other, so that'll occur. So one thing that one should be careful about when it comes to these projections and what they expect to actually occur when everything is done is where the jobs are coming from. Are we just shuffling around jobs, musical chairs, or these net new? And and Stephen Ross's his related companies, they do have a very big Rolodex. A lot of companies around the country are already their tenants, especially New York, and they say that there has been some interest in coming into Detroit, by some new companies, as well as some existing ones that might upgrade, come into the new buildings, possibly expand. So it is still an open question, whether they could make those projections. It's not completely BS, but a lot of things have to work out perfectly for those numbers to come true.
JC, one thing that you and I can't get to the bottom of, no matter how hard we try, because we just don't have access to the raw information, is these previous promises, whether they were kept. Was there a shell game where someone who was already in a building moved to another building? The city should be able to compile, or the state should be able to compile some of this information by looking at income tax data, where people file their taxes, where they're working, that sort of thing. Is there anybody from the city or anywhere else who's saying, okay, in the last deal, you said you were going to create 2,000 jobs that pay an average of $75,000 a year or whatever it might be? Is there anybody going back and looking at that and saying, well, based on what you promised us, based on what we can see from our tax data, that you kept that promise? Because I know projections, some of it is dependent on, do we have another pandemic? Who knows what's going to happen? But in terms of what you promised before and where we are today, there should be raw data that can be analyzed to say, you said we would have 10,000 more jobs in this square footage or mileage or whatever that pay this and thus and so. We can actually break that down. Is anybody doing that? Is anybody being asked to do that?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I've not heard of anyone that has been asked or has done that. I believe that would require someone who's in government, who has access to all that data, because just your average person, even reporters, don't have access to tax data. You'd have to really do some research, and you'd have to have an incentive, to be watchdogging these projects. It's going to require some work going back. And again, this isn't publicly available information out there. I've yet to hear of anyone doing that.
Well, I think I'm going to, maybe in the Free Press, ask if anybody's going to do that or why they aren't doing that, because politicians love ribbon cuttings. They love hanging out with rich people who can make campaign contributions. They love being at the press conferences. They love wearing those helmets and then getting this fancy silver shovel out there and digging dirt.
And it's always the same ones.
Yeah, and where is the friggin' accountability? Where are people saying, well, if we're going to do another deal for you, how did you do on the last one? I just don't think there's incentive for politicians to do that, and I think we need to apply some of that pressure ourselves. And frankly, one of the things that I talked about when I was running for city council is clawback. When are we going to say, hey, folks, you said you'd have this done in 5 years. You didn't get it done. Maybe we need to change the deal. Or using the example that you cited, we're going to capture this much in taxes. We didn't do 10 buildings, but we did 8, but we'd still like to have the full capture. Why isn't somebody saying, well, if you only did 8, how about we give you 80% of what we told you we were going to give you? Do you hear anything in these conversations, or are these developers ever saying, hey, if we don't hit our mark, we'll make it up to you?
Yeah, I've never heard that. And a lot of these,
I'm stunned.
The transformational.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just, it's crazy.
Yeah.
They never feel like they need to give us a
brownfield
guarantee.
subsidy.
We just have to guarantee stuff for them.
Yeah. Like the transformational brownfield subsidy, which is a state level tax capture, the $616 million tax capture, that does not have any clawbacks, because the way it works, again, it's, tax increment financing. There's no check being handed over. Though the one test, or I would say one development that I'm going to be watching closely is going to be happening at the end of February, where the very first transformative brownfield that was approved by the state of Michigan was actually for Gilbert's projects, the 4 developments in downtown. You had the one campus Marsh's, the Pompeo building, that expansion in the back. You also had the Book Tower redevelopment. You had the Hudson site, that massive project. And then the other one was the Monroe blocks, which, right now they have, an Imagine outdoor theater there. They've had some winter games, some roller skating in warmer months. And that project was actually supposed to be a massive, that site was supposed to be a massive office complex with some housing. And that hasn't happened. Again, to be fair, that was proposed, long before COVID. Back when there really was a time in Detroit not long ago where we had run out of Class A office space. There's a lot of demand for, apparently we heard there was a lot of demand for more tenants to come to Detroit. And Detroit had trouble luring in any big, high profile national tenants because we needed to kind of have a lot of space available for them to move to. So there was a strong argument to building a lot of new office space, in 17, 18, 19. Then COVID hit. And so in late February, the DDA has asked Bedrock to present a revised plan for what they're going to do at Monroe Blocks. That was supposed to be done at the end of last year, according to the original timeline. Massive office complex, very large residential, all finished last year. Obviously, nothing's happened. And so I'm really curious to see what does happen when you have an example of a big project as one of these transformative brownfields that doesn't occur. Maybe they could still finish it. It's a lot of these projects take years to finish. Maybe we'll completely rebound from COVID. Maybe less remote work. Maybe we'll lure a lot of new national tenants to Detroit. But one does wonder if there's going to be a need to build some of these projects, especially with Illich and Ross building their new office buildings. Are the Monroe Blocks going to get done or not? So I'm going to be watching to see what happens at the end of February to see if there is any clawback or what does happen with that.
When, say, Olympia or Ross's companies, they're going to put together this development and they want to look at incentives, do they come up with it? Do they go to the DDA in the state for the Brownsfield? Or is it done in concert? And if they just go to these public institutions, how much pushback is there? Like, no, we're not going to give you $616 million, or is that just locked into a law?
Yeah, right now for the District of Detroit build out, there is for the transformative brownfield, the biggest tranche of the subsidies. There actually is a very set process, and there's you could say there's three pegs to it. The first peg is you have a local brownfield advisory board that takes a vote on it. And they're going to do that February 8th, I believe, or they could. Or that's the next meeting. And then after that, let's just say they approve it, it goes towards city council. And so they can have a lot of discussion and they would vote it yay or nay. And if they approve it, it then goes to the Michigan Strategic Fund, which is a quasi governmental development group up in Lansing association. And they approve almost everything that comes before them. But I would say from the public's perspective, that it really comes up to council, what they're going to do if they're going to be okay with this $616 million brownfield.
Well, thank God we have counsel there to make the right call because
right.
JC and Dan Afana and I wrote a story last year about how council was recommending this. Two council members were recommending a big tax abatement for Gilbert. Turns out most of the members on council were getting money from Gilbert's significant campaign contributions from a PAC controlled by Gilbert. Right after our story came out, they delayed their vote. They spent a month trying to learn more about this major project, which if they were ready to vote on it, why did they need to spend another month learning about it? And in the end, council did approve it, but the two council members who had recommended approval ended up voting against a deal that had been made a lot better because the Free Press shed some light on this, and Gilbert and his associates said, we better make this deal sweeter if we're going to get this through city council. So it
really seems like whatever they ask for, they're going to get.
Yeah, I mean, council just is not, they are not the check on the power that they really should be. They're not the check on the power of the mayor they should be, and they're not the check on the power of the powerful people who are transforming our city. And it's really important to note as well, I think, that we like LCA. We're glad that the book tower is being reformed. I'm grateful to see the Detroit Free Press building the original one, or the original one at 321 West Lafayette, coming back to life. Downtown has been transformed by Peter Carmanos, by Dan Gilbert, by a lot of other people, and before them by Gary Torgo.
Yeah, we want these things, but at what cost?
We want these things, but we also want everybody to keep up their end of the bargain. And if they ask us to put something on the table, we expect them to live up to what they told us. And $95,000 a year jobs for 5,800 people. That means somebody who holds the door is making 30 grand. That means somebody who's walking through the door must be making 200 grand. And
it stinks.
The problem is
Party poopers.
these deals are oversold. We're not being told truthfully what's going on. And then no one goes back to check. And I really think that before Olympia or Illich companies, whatever they're calling themselves now, ask us for any more money, they should provide us a really high quality, accurate breakdown of how well they fulfilled their last promise. And if they're not willing to do that, then I have to wonder if it's because the numbers didn't fall the way they said they were, and that they don't want to be judged by their track record when they come back to us for even more help.
And you know the city never has any data on it either.
Well, the city's just like, oh, you want to do this? That'd be great. And, and you have seen these projects change because the fact that we're having some affordable housing, that's a transformation that's happened because people were bitching that these new buildings were only for the rich folks. And so the city has affected the course of these projects. But in terms of holding them accountable for doing everything they said they do, boy, I just don't have that sense. And if anybody knew whether they were doing that, it would be JC, because this guy is a bulldog. So JC, we really appreciate you coming on and for the work you're doing. And I look forward to seeing your next story, because I know if there's anybody who's going to ask some hard questions of these jokers, it's going to be JC Reindell of the Detroit Free Press.
Thank you for having me on. I'm flattered.
Well,
he doesn't say that to just anyone.
Unlike these developers, we don't blow sunshine up people's ass and then give them colon cancer. We think that
That's
okay. Sorry, that's a
just
bad.
stop when you're ahead, ML.
That's a bad visual. But yeah, no, great job, JC, and stay on them. And I hope that we'll be able to team up again in the near future to let these folks know that they just can't paint these fantasy images and think that
and keep transforming the city. Thanks, JC. Thanks for listening to Mike's soliloquy.
Why are you so mad? Why'd you call us party poopers? We'll let you go, JC. Now we're going to yell at Shawn. Thank you.
JC remembers what downtown was like 20 years ago.
But that's what we just said. We want these things, right?
No, you really don't.
Bullshit. Why would you say that?
Because you just want to complain.
So you're okay with
as long as they're not dumping shit. Yeah. If there's
you're fine with it. You're fine with wow, I've never seen you on a billionaire side before.
I'll tell you why these discussions
we
matter.
act like this is our money. It's not. It's
no, it is our money.
It is.
This is public money. This is money that would be going into. Now, that's why tax increment finance districts are complex, but they are, I think, useful because it is our money. But if they don't build it, there's no money to go in our pocket. So that's why these, I think, are justifiable. But here's why these discussions matter. There was a great gourmet grocery store on Woodward called the Butcher Shop. It was started by some folks with their own money. They did a wonderful job, prepared foods, high-end stuff, wine department, people who really knew what they were talking about. A very lovely place to go. No help from the city. Whole Foods wants to come here. Right down the block from them, the city piles money that upon dollar to encourage Whole Foods to go there. Whole Foods opens with these massive subsidies, puts the Butcher Shop out of business. And we were told Whole Foods needs all these incentives because it's a big investment, it's a big risk. And I keep hearing it's one of the most profitable Whole Foods in the whole chain. And so by subsidizing, by picking a winner, we eliminated an organically grown, high-quality local business. And that's why, it's not just that we want things to come downtown. It's, are we hurting people who are making things happen with money out of their own pocket, who are making their own risk? Because ideally, everything is going to happen organically where people, they take a risk. If they win, they're rewarded. If they don't, hey, you paid your money, you take your chances. But when we put all these incentives and these subsidize all these projects, we're stopping other things from moving forward.
Like JC said too, Sean, the $616 million that are brownfield tax captures, that's money that would go back, right? I mean,
right. And I'm not, and I agree about the $5,800 figure and the $95,000 salary, but that's about $600 million.
It's all lies.
That's just for 1 year, though, right?
But
it's not all lies. Part of it, none of it's lie. It's just exaggeration. Some of it's going to work, though. To JC's point.
Well, yeah, that's
a fair amount of it. Actually, is
I just
work.
wonder, would they do this $1.5 billion development? You know, all these buildings. Would they do it?
To me, the stadiums are the boondoggles. The stadiums are the ridiculous ones because the jobs that those provide, and the fact that mostly they sit, especially football stadiums, right? They may have some concerts in them, but or truck shows. But other than that, they got 8 home games a year. Those are the boondoggles in every community across the country. But what this development, what JC's talking about, that's different.
That's fine. But what I wonder, and this is kind of why I'm glad he laid out where this money's coming from and what breaks are getting, is if this development's so great, $1.5 billion, would they do it if their incentives were only $500 million?
Well, I don't know. Would they have built? Would they have, the book is a great example. That place would still be empty if there weren't subsidies, massive subsidies.
But it also has never done what it was supposed to do, which is why the developer sold it after losing his shirt. I mean,
and does it bother you that it's always the same 2 names mainly? Now Stephen Ross is involved. Does it bother you at all that there's so much bedrock in this area of downtown, and then everything up there is Olympia and Illich? I mean, yeah, I'm glad somebody's doing it, but it'd be nice to have a little diversification of development.
Who else is going to? Oh, I get you're right. I mean, you can question.
I'm sure there's developers around the country. Ross didn't get involved in this out of the kindness of his heart.
No, he wants to make money. Of course not.
Exactly.
And he's got some issues.
So why are we giving him so much?
Maybe Gilbert does.
Why are we giving him so much help to make that money?
Who else is coming up to do it? That's the problem. This is how our culture works.
With this
deal, the world works. Unfortunately,
I think there's a lot of developers that would like this deal and might come here.
There are smaller projects that get incentives, so it's not like these things just go to these guys. And if you're going to do a project on such a grand scale, you do have to be kind of a big player. But
what's Ford getting to redo the train station?
Here's my problem: when I go to the bank and I want to buy a house or I want to refinance, I don't tell them, I'm going to make $150,000 a year over the next 20 years, so you should loan me $200,000. You say, no, asshole, give me your W-2s. I want to know exactly how much you did make. I want to know how much you do have in the bank, and then I'll decide whether to finance this deal. And these developers can go to these banks, and they should be having those same conversations, because if the deals make sense, the banks will write the notes. And JC has said there is going to be some lending involved. And maybe to hit the certain numbers, the bank needs us to.
They're not going to write those notes without the subsidies. That's the thing. I mean, that's the issue
at
here.
this scale.
Think about it this way.
When you're laying out pie in the sky, 5,800 jobs paying an average of $95,000 a year, somebody needs to say, whoa, back that up.
But what if it's half that? Or even a third of that.
Well, then tell us that.
That's better than what was there before, which was nothing. By the way, I went to Mi Pueblo, whatever. I'm a Lapidus guy. If you're talking about taquerias in Southwest Detroit, there's several other spots down there that are great. I went down to Mi Pueblo a couple of weeks ago and went right by. It was at night. Went by the train station and it was lit up. And I was just thinking, so.
Yes, there is a.
What does that mean to the folks in Corktown and the neighborhoods that are just south and just west of there? What does that mean to see that building with lights?
No, development.
And life at some point, the psychological part of that. And that's what's unique and different about Detroit. JC was talking about Chicago, or he didn't specifically say New York. Well, I guess Ross and his project in New York, but Detroit's different.
I'll tell you what it means to a lot of people over there.
We got to sell our soul a little bit, right?
It means gentrification. It means I'm going to be forced out of my home.
That's a different issue. No, I agree.
No, but that's a big thing. With the train station, when those high salaries come there's going to be a lot of landlords who say, it's my turn to cash in, raising the rents, driving people out of that neighborhood who've been there for a long time. And so when these things happen, there are people in Corktown, there are people in Mexican Town who are sitting here saying, this is bad. This is going to change what life is like in my neighborhood. I'm going to be forced out. I'm going to, I can't afford to go to the corner store because now it's a high-end coffee shop. Development, so last night I emceed this event for the human trafficking, which we talked about last week on the show. Yeah. Beautiful documentary. Hopefully it'll come to Detroit. But one
Sounds
of the
like
things,
a great episode.
one of the things they talked about was that as they're keeping people in the village and educating them and helping them get higher paying jobs, they're losing skills, native skills like weaving and building these instruments. And the people who are trying to improve life for people in the village also recognize that as they do that, they are changing the culture and they are losing some of the things that make these villages distinctive. And they don't know how to balance that out. But it's one of these things where, you know, when it's the law of unintended consequences, when you do something, something else happens, and it may not be what you wanted and it may not be what you like. And, you know, there are people who live near these places where we love going to this show or this restaurant or whatever who are getting pushed out. You know, I mean,
And that's an issue, and that's an issue in every city in this country. Right?
Well, then
There's
if you're
no
going to disrupt
question.
a community, don't lie to me or pretend that you're going to turn everybody who works there into a millionaire. Tell me what's really going to happen so I can evaluate
So
the
now
deal
you're exaggerating.
on
I don't
its
think anybody's
merits.
promising a millionaire.
Yeah, for the purposes of this conversation, I engage in some hyperbole, but my hyperbole is on a friggin' podcast, not because I expect somebody to give me $600 million in incentives. There's a big difference.
Yeah.
And what are you going to get for that $600 million? That's the question. And only JC has the answer to that. I defer to JC on that.
JC is just glad that he doesn't have to roll around in the dirt with these intellectual sows.
Oh, there's nothing intellectual about me. Again, the stadiums, the ballparks, all that, that's just
Taylor asked a great question.
just horse shit.
Did Dan Gilbert ever build that MLS stadium on the jail site?
Total bait and switch.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Such horse shit.
that's the other thing is, you know, when we see these things, again, that was a mirage that faded so quickly. It made you wonder.
We like those shiny objects, right?
Well, there was a couple of seconds there where
Every politician wants their picture taken in front of the rendering.
Well, that may be true too, but there was a couple of seconds there where soccer was the thing, right? And everybody wanted in on it.
No, soccer still is a thing. In fact,
The MLS, not the Premier League, which is what Mark cares about.
Well, no, I care about it all. I would love, and I love DCFC, but I wouldn't mind an MLS team in this city, and they really kind of hurt the chance that could happen.
Well, first they went, okay, we got this beautiful rendering. Then they get now we want to do it at Ford Field. It's like, wow, you changed venues really quickly. And I still remember when the Maroons were being threatened with the demolition of Michigan Central Depot, which is a building that I love, but really had been left abandoned so long that something should have been done to it. And so they came up with this plan where we're going to turn it into a international intermodal hub. And they had these renderings at City Council, and City Council was threatening, we are going to make you tear that down, or we're going to tear it down and send you the bill.
And then it doesn't work. It's like you
let
write
me
the
just
lead.
finish this. Let me finish this. So they put these renderings out, and City Council said, oh, you're doing something, so we'll back down. They never did anything. It was just to divert, to dodge, to delay.
It happens all the time.
And it shouldn't.
Why shouldn't it? It's like you starting a column and writing two sentences you hate and then you scratch out. It's just on a much grander scale.
Yeah, but at
It's
some
just
point I filed a
human
column.
error and human ambition all kind of mixed together. Human frailty, human failure. That's what it is. It's all mixed together. You spurt, and you sput, and you go forward a little bit, and then you go way back. That's been the story for 50 years for this city.
I want $50 million in from the DDA to build something. That'd
Here's
be
the
great.
story of this city. People promise pie in the sky and not even giving us crumbs.
No, but then some
That's
do.
got to stop.
But then some do.
At what cost?
Right?
Things get built, but just be real with us. And if you can't fulfill your promises, there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, we had a pandemic. Hey, we had trouble with bank financing. Hey, there was a recession. Hey, people don't want to move downtown anymore because it turns out the rents were higher than they could afford. Just tell us that. But don't paint some beautiful picture, which is bullshit, and then come back with another beautiful picture and say, we're the guys who... Because you're not the guys.
It does say something when private financing is a little harder to get than the public financing. Don't you think?
Well, you're not going to get the private without the public subsidies,
Yeah,
right?
because they know it's not that great of a project, maybe.
Right, because of the circumstances of where we're starting from. So it's going to be different.
Well, we understand
And
that
there's going to be risk, and a lot of it's not going to work.
We understand. Well, you know,
$800 million.
Yeah,
in subsidies.
One way that risk becomes
800
reality
It's
is
not-
when you make unrealistic
To
projections.
JC's point, they're not cutting them a check, right?
No,
There
but
was
they recap
nothing to start.
the
Mike
616
made the
thing.
best point of the day. There's nothing to start with. You're starting with nothing, so anything is a gain.
Well, they are cutting a check. The DDA, I think JC's column said $24 million for infrastructure things. But how do you define that? What's going to be defined as that? I don't know. Maybe that's in the fine print. So that is cash. They
or
get the
it's
tax
just
recapture,
or
which
it's
is-
just dirt,
Yeah, but it's dirt in a prime.
and maybe some pheasants.
But it's dirt.
And
in
I know that's a hipster thing to do in the city to go out and hunt them.
What?
these buildings are going to be empty
Hipsters are
too.
hunting pheasants.
Well, they were for a while.
I never heard that. But anyway,
and they're delicious too. I mean, if we're being real.
If we're talking about
I'm trying
Mexican
to deflect
restaurants,
because that's a good deflection.
Our former colleague Diane Weiss made a documentary, right, about the pheasants of
It's a
Detroit.
great deflection.
we used to have pheasants in my neighborhood. We don't anymore. It's still a nice neighborhood, but I don't know. But anyway, the point is, though.
What
and
was your
this
point?
This is really important. Is this land downtown, because of the development, is now prime real estate. And maybe somebody has a project that's worthy of considering, and they should be able to compete with it without saying, I need $600 million. Maybe they don't, but we're not talking about some land by the airport that used to be a landfill. We're not talking about some former lead-filled site where they used to smelt this or that.
No, we're talking about land that is more valuable because the very people you're trashing, which deserve a lot of criticism, have made it more valuable.
Sure.
They should make it valuable for everybody who has a plan, not just like, well, we made something out of this.
Well, other people
Some of it
can
with
come
your
in,
money,
right?
and so we're going to continue to
Other
suck
people
all the
can
blood
come
out
in
of
But
it.
now,
that's the question. Would other people get $800 million?
Well, maybe not, but maybe they'll get the percentage
the
that's
problem.
relative to that. Well, maybe it's a much smaller scale
Now
project,
you're
but they're
getting
going to
it.
get
That's the problem.
right instead of 1.5 to 8. Maybe it's a $10 million, and they're going to get $5 million in subsidies or whatever. As long as it's the same ratio,
But
that's what we're talking
I don't think
about.
it would be the same ratio. Is kind of our point.
Well, I don't know. I don't know enough. Mike, you know a lot more. JC would know a whole lot more about who's building what and trying to do.
Yeah, I don't have a head for these things. JC does. My only point is, tell us the truth. That's all I want to know. Tell us the truth. And if you're an elected official or you're a city official, hold them accountable. If they didn't live up to their promise, claw back. If they say they're going
The
to
land
create,
of optimism. We're the land of Teletubbies. Come on, man.
well, we have data.
You're talking about trying to change the
Who has
culture.
data? Not the city. I'll tell you that much. Before we move on, I just noticed that JC is still on there. JC, if you can hear me and are paying attention, is there anything you want to correct and are yelling at Shawn? Did we get any numbers wrong?
No, you guys are great.
Okay, good.
100% accurate.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah.
And Shawn's wrong, right?
JC, Jay's not biting.
Damn it.
You can say it, JC.
That's a hard pass.
You're wrong.
No,
You can say I'm wrong. I don't care. I'm always wrong.
We
JC's torn.
He likes to stick to the facts.
We also
opinion.
we also are guilty of making some rosy predictions, which is that Shawn will be a serious contributor to the conversation.
Well, he was at the end. Mr. Capitalist over there.
Yeah, I know.
I can't believe
Give these
you guys-
billionaires all this
I
money.
can't believe you guys put me in that spot.
When did
But-
Why are you
Stephen
in that
Ross get
spot?
to you?
Part of the blue wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Hey,
By the way-
if you need help with financing, there's my segue, right?
Yes. No, let's talk to some people who look at real numbers and who can make a real
Yeah, if you
difference.
can't get a $25 million loan at 1% for 33 years, you still might be able to do something with your money. And mortgage interest rates are the lowest they've been in over 4 months. And now the holidays are behind us. Now's the time to take a look at your finance and consider consolidating your debt with a cash out refinance. This is what normal, hardworking people have to do. Use the equity in your home, put yourself in a better financial situation. It's the most affordable way to eliminate debt. And how do you do that? Shawn asks.
Pay your people.
You're supposed to just say, how do you do that? A free 5-minute mortgage review with Hall Financials. All it takes to see how much money you've gained in home equity. And in most cases, you can access that money in 2 weeks or less. So whether you're looking to purchase a new home, refinance your current home, you need to call Hall Financial first, 866-CALL-HALL, or chat with them online at callhallfirst.com. How about that?
That sounds
Fabulous.
pretty good.
And if you are making a big financial decision, such as purchasing that new home or a car, or maybe
Building
even
a stadium.
building a stadium, there you go. You're going to need to see how these decisions are going to affect your current and future financial goals And the one person we recommend is Luke Nowacki, and he's got a whole team at Pinnacle Wealth Strategies to help you plan for all your financial goals, both today and well into the future. Call Luke today at 248-663-4748 for a complimentary consultation to see if these plans are going to align with your goals.
Because when you call Luke, he'll make it all about you, sweetheart.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through Royal Alliance Associates Inc. Member FINRA SIPC. Royal Alliance Associates Inc. is separately owned, and other entities and/or marketing names, products, or services referenced here are independent of Royal Alliance Associates Inc.
Oh man, the geeks have inherited the earth.
Did I do that?
What a dork.
Does him wanting to play with us again mean that he's turning into a geek, or we're turning into cool guys?
I was going to make our Geek of the Week this Chiefs fan who is known as, I think, Chiefs...
Jackson Mahomes?
No. This is a guy who shows up at,
Sean laughed
at Kansas City Chiefs games dressed as a wolf. And he missed the last game, and they found out eventually why he missed it, because he was in jail because he tried to rob a bank, and no one knew how he was able to afford all these things. And it turns out he may be a bank robber, but it also turns out
that's a fun story.
That he has an incredibly tragic upbringing, and so he may have just been doing what he needed to do to get by and to have a little notoriety. So he's not our Geek of the Week.
Like Dan Gilbert.
So it's going to be Jackson Mahomes?
No, it's going to be Mike Pompeo, our former Secretary of State for the United States.
That was a left turn.
And a presidential wannabe.
Right turn.
Also from Kansas, though.
It's left.
Also from Kansas. So he mocks the disproportionate
Kansas,
global uproar. What's that?
The Chiefs are in Missouri.
I'm sorry, Mike Pompeo. Go ahead.
I kind of was worried that might be the case. But there's a Kansas City in Kansas, right?
There is. Great barbecue.
Okay.
There, as well as Kansas City, Missouri.
Better than Lapidus?
Oklahoma Joe's. It's
So
in
anyway-
a gas station. I think it's in Kansas. There you go.
Welcome to Mi Pueblo, Sean.
God bless him.
Anyway, Mike Pompeo mocks
Keep eating your Chick-fil-A.
the disproportionate global uproar over Jamal Khashoggi's death. You may remember Jamal Khashoggi was the Washington Post journalist who had his head separated from his body because he criticized Mohammed bin Salman, also known as MBS, one of the most powerful, one of the richest, and perhaps one of the most vile people on the face of the earth. Well, Mike Pompeo says that MBS, the beheader, said he is one of the most important leaders of his time, a truly historic figure on the world stage. Well, he may be historic, but it's for all the wrong reasons. And maybe he's going to change the culture in Saudi Arabia, one head at a time. But Mike Pompeo, somebody who beheads someone who fights for freedom and the truth, you think that's overblown? Well, guess what, buddy? You may never be president, but you are our Geek of the Week.
See you again.
There's an all-night party in room 7609. And you can dance together all night if you've got the time.
I can't believe you made me take the side of the billionaires.
We didn't make you do anything.
We made you do
That's unbelievable.
anything.
Pro-gentrification.
So we can have
pro-billion.
I'm not pro-gentrification. So
Yeah,
we
you
can,
are.
So we can have a little bit of tension in here.
No, that
That was an act?
That was not
Unbelievable.
contrived.
You were playing pretend?
No. I just care about different things. I want people to get paid. I don't want companies dumping sludge. And I don't want companies making products that they know are going to come harm because it's cheaper just to pay out in court. I don't want stuff like that.
Everybody
but if you're
agrees
just
with
talking about some pie in the sky tax dollars for real estate development, I don't give a shit.
Sounds like
As long as there's some eventual development.
And that's how things get built.
It sounds like Sean
More or less.
is in the middle of having his refinancing with Rocket Mortgage evaluated and is trying to score some points with another firm out there that may be owned by someone who's looking for some hefty time.
No. I'll stick with my my military firm.
Okay. Well, we kind of took a little bit of a dog leg last month, and I guess it's still the 31st. It's still January. looking at the shoegazing movement, which followed new wave, and people were really happy to hear Blur. And
I like the way you raise your eyebrows when you say shoegazing. That's nice.
right.
It's a nice touch.
And all the time, listeners want us to play stuff, and Shawn says, "No, we're not going to give them what they want. To hell with these people. We're not going to knuckle under them. We are going to be the iron fist of podcasting." But people are digging shoegazing, so we thought we would play a little something from Suede, which you may have never heard before, but a lot of people who like shoegazing consider to be the best of the genre, including Julie, who writes, "I really enjoyed the discussion of Britpop and hearing one of my favorite Blur songs on your podcast. I'm one of the people you mentioned who thinks Suede is the best of the big Britpop bands, although sadly, they're the least popular on this side of the pond." Well, we're going to try and do something about that today. So here is Suede playing what I think is one of their best songs. It's called Beautiful Ones.
Diesel and gasoline, psycho the drum machine, kicking their bits to the heads. Drag acts, drug acts, suicide, and your tattoos you hide, stating his name again. Cracked up, stacked up, 22, psycho for sex and blue, lost it to bus, yeah. Shaved heads, ravens, got too much time to kill. Get into bands and gangs. Here they come. The beautiful ones. The beautiful ones. La 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 la. Here they come. The beautiful ones. The beautiful ones. La 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 la. To the beat, high on diesel, gasoline, psycho for drum machine, shaking their beds to the heads. Here they come, the beautiful ones, the beautiful ones. La 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 la, here they come, the beautiful ones, the beautiful ones. You don't think about it, you don't do without it, because you're beautiful, yeah, yeah. And if your babies are going crazy, that's how you make me. La la. And if your babies are going crazy, that's how you make me. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Your babies are going crazy. That's how you make me. La 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 la. La 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 la. Oh la 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 la.
La la la. I can sing that last part.
Who got the song?
La's there.
Who got the song rating? There actually is a good British band called the La's.
Oh, I know.
But is it one of Drew's favorites? Oh yeah. Well, Suede was one of the sort of the Manchester bands that really got things going in the new Britpop movement. In 1992, Melody Maker named them the best new band in Britain, and their debut album, Suede, was one of the fastest selling albums in a decade. They really came out strong, but they've been eclipsed by Blur, Oasis, even Pulp and some other places where we're like, okay, yeah, we know those guys, but Suede never really seemed to make it here. And Julie says that she went to go see them at a venue in Chicago about the size of the Fox Theater. It was half full.
Really?
Yeah, and she's like, I don't know why they didn't take off. She highly recommends their new release, which has a song on it called Shadow Self. She says it's got a terrific bass line, which I'll definitely have to check out because I think everybody knows how much I love the bass. And she says, give Suede a listen. You will not be disappointed. I listened to some of their stuff. Not all of it really resonated with me, but I thought The Beautiful Ones had a nice kind of, it sort of has a, I don't know, a little happy, bouncy, jangly feel to it.
Yeah, it was fun. Thanks, Julie. Does anybody feel like a filet of fish sandwich?
What? Wait, what?
I thought you...
What? Huh?
Anybody else having a craving for a filet of fish?
No.
Sure, always.
Yeah.
No.
Where would that come from? Why? Why do you have a craving?
I don't know. I'm just,
Okay.
but nice song. Yeah.
Man, your mind
Thank you,
wanders.
Julie.
Yeah. That was...
You were not a fan, I take it, of.
No, it was nice. Jangly. Did you say jangly?
Yes, you did.
It has kind of a...
Some energy.
You know, I almost want to say it's Beatles-esque, but it doesn't really quite feel Beatles-esque, but it gives me that kind of pure pop, reaction where it's just sort of a happy, upbeat little, I'm tapping my foot, I'm, nodding my head and, kind of bouncing, and it's fun.
You're missing the most interesting fact about the band Suede, and that their manager when they first started was Ricky Gervais.
What?
Yeah.
Now, we've played Ricky Gervais before in Room 769 because he actually started as a new wave artist. And if you go look at the pictures, he's
with
like,
the hair, yeah,
and the makeup. I mean, it's kind of like Gary Newman. I'm the robot guy in the band. But they weren't bad. I think when we listened to them, we all kind of liked that tune.
Yeah. Yeah, but Ricky, that was, he managed him. Definitely managed him.
And another brush with greatness was in the original lineup was Justine Frischman from Elastica.
God, I love Elastica.
Which is a great band.
You mentioned Manchester several sentences ago, right? As the Anglophile. Any suggestions for us? Of TV shows that are that take place in that part of the country? Anything you've been tuned in on lately? I know you watch Shetland.
Life on Mars. It's
Life on
great.
Mars. Okay.
Yeah, it's based in Manchester in the 70s.
When was that? When was that show made? 70s. Is it in color?
It is in color. It's
Shetland was at least recent. So anything else? No.
I think there's a lot of. I think there's like a Manchester like.
Well, it doesn't have to be Manchester. It could be. Right? Could be. Yeah.
You're just looking for the BritBox recommendations.
Yeah, or anything that's north of London, basically.
It's $7.99 a month now for BritBox, so I may be separating.
Scott and Bailey is like a British Cagney and Lacey.
I gotta say,
and that's really fun.
If you're subscribing to BritBox, have you run out of things to watch?
Yeah, Last Tango in Halifax.
Oh, yeah.
It's really good, and it's Sally Wainwright. She writes about that part of the country. She's written a series called Unforgiven. Happy Valley's her best. That's an amazing show with Sarah Lancashire. Yeah, she's kind of incredible.
And is it this affection for these shows that made you such a fan of new wave music?
No, I don't think the people in these shows are that pretentious, but
Pretentious? They're talking about that new wave music is a working class expression of angst.
I know it is. Yeah, it's like bicycling over there. I know. I get it.
So, would you help them build some massive fortress to capitalism?
You guys had a lot of fun. You guys had a lot of fun last week, didn't you?
No, we missed you.
Glad
you're okay.
Well, it seemed to be a very focused and purposeful show where everything fit together seamlessly, almost like
sounds interesting.
A Shinola watch.
Sounds interesting,
but only cheaper.
Yeah.
But we're glad you're back. We were concerned about you, and now that you're well, we can continue.
Where's this? Was it the outro with some kind of thing you put together?
Yeah, we have an outro every week. What are you talking about?
Or was it the intro and I just?
Well, we do an intro every week too.
You were that's where you somebody took you.
It
but
went over my head.
And was that a shorter intro than originally conceived?
I didn't hear Mark's voice.
No, it was in there.
Shawn.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah.
I may have been.
disguised it very well.
I didn't hear it. Yeah, maybe I wouldn't listen.
So
Sorry.
you can download the episode and listen back.
Okay.
It felt like there was a music bed under that I didn't remember from the original trailer, but it was
there.
it was very good.
Who's the
As
guy
always.
that draws the cartoon sitcom with the character Stewie?
The guy that draws.
Is that the Family Guy?
Oh yeah,
Seth
Family Guy.
MacFarlane?
Yeah.
So he does Kermit the Frog doing Taken. Have you ever seen that? Doing I have a very particular set of skills only in Kermit the Frog's voice.
Was it Miss Piggy who got taken?
It's pretty great, actually.
I've never seen Taken.
And I've never seen the Family Guy.
What? Because you're spending all your time on
Well, wait a
BritBox.
minute. I've seen
'cause
both of them. When does that happen
I
before?
know.
Oh, you've seen that bit he's done? Well, the problem is if you watch Graham Norton,
I mean,
it was
I've
on
seen the
Graham
Family
Norton. It's
Guy.
easy to get down the rabbit hole with Graham Norton. Though.
Yeah.
Why don't you watch some American stuff?
I do. What about The Last of Us?
Do you really want to go down that path?
I
'Cause
do. I have not seen it.
Oh, okay.
How is it? Is it worth watching?
Everybody loves it, right?
You don't.
I don't.
But the lead actor I loved in Narcos. He's Chilean, by the way.
Yeah, he's the Mandalorian, isn't he?
Yeah,
he's the Mandalorian.
And he was the
Pablo.
bad guy in the
Great.
Wonder Woman, second Wonder Woman, which I've not seen.
I'll tell you my problem with The Last of Us. It feels a lot like The Walking Dead. I mean, I know they're not zombies or a fungus this time, but with a lot less characters that I don't care about. You're 3 episodes in. I don't care about any of these characters. And the last episode is getting these rave reviews for being this fantastic episode. And I guess it was good as a one-off, but for the 3rd episode of a series, you're going to have a one-off that doesn't really matter to the plot.
Do you
I
give
don't
your
know.
opinion and talk about this show and shows like this that are hot button culture shows on the other show, the other podcast that you obviously care a lot more about?
What, the Drew and Mike show?
Yeah.
I do sometimes, but only when it comes up. I don't know. And I get hammered for it because I know people love this show. I'm not sold on it yet.
I just want him to bring his cultural expertise to this show a little bit.
I'm just Chilean over here waiting for you to get
Oh,
back to new
you've
wave
been
music.
sitting on that one for a while.
As always, we
That's so
appreciate
lame.
your suggestions here for Room 7609. And we issued a challenge last week that we would love for you to send us some current music, some pop music that takes a riff, takes a hook, maybe samples new wave music, because we want to do a month of new wave reborn. And I mentioned to you that I've heard some stuff that have men without hats in it, some stuff that borrows riffs from Aha. And if you know some of those, please send those suggestions to mlsoulofdetroit@gmail.com. If there's some more shoegazing you'd like to hear before we move on to the next
Or navel gazing. You could keep talking.
I was quiet for quite a while there. I thought that might be appreciated. But we would love to hear from you at mlsoulofdetroit.com. If you enjoyed seeing JC on the show, that means you must be watching us on Facebook. Perhaps you could suggest or consider subscribing to our YouTube channel, where if you sign up for notifications, you'll get an alert. Just click the bell so you always know when we go live. And, of course, you can watch all of our shows that have been broadcast. Watch the replay on YouTube, and they're also on Facebook. Our YouTube channel is ML Soul of Detroit. No donors to thank this week, but we always appreciate it when they come through. And you can just go to our website, mlsoulofdetroit.com, and there's a very elaborate process to follow that I'm going to let Mark walk us through it, because I have not been able to master it myself.
mlsoulofdetroit.com and click on the donate button.
Oh,
It's very, very simple. I know it sounds hard, but just give it a try. See if you can do it. Prove to us that you can do it.
Thanks for wearing your ML Soul of Detroit gear today, by the way.
that was
Me?
easier
Yeah,
than I
you.
thought.
I was going to wear the long sleeve
And
shirt,
then you
but
saw
it
the
didn't
Drew
match.
and Mike.
It didn't match my outfit.
I
I didn't want to
like
I didn't
that
want to be in a Canadian tuxedo.
Next week, you'll be in the Charlie LaDuff. What's the name of his show?
You know the name of it. Why don't you say it?
Something. No, what is it?
No BS News Hour.
No BS. Okay, I'm a little tired.
Oh,
Sorry.
I thought it was
So you're so full
no
of BS.
bis. No bis or no
You're so full of
multiple
shit.
B's.
And then next week, you'll be in that gear. That paraphernalia.
Well, that's what I'm going to wear now, just for you.
Thank you. Thank you for supporting this podcast.
So we do have some feedback, and you know what? We're coming up. We're coming up this spring. We'll hit 200 episodes. For our 100th episode, Max Prokop created some music for us, Buzz Me Mellow, and I'm thinking for the 200th episode, I should ask Max if he can come up with another distinctive piece of music.
Why do you want to mess with it?
Well, you can use both.
You're a man who watches TV from the 70s.
Why does it have to be
Why do
one
I
or
have to
the
change
other?
this?
We can use some from another segment. In fact, maybe
Yeah.
if people donate, we can use that money to pay Max's very modest and reasonable commission to commission some new music. So we'll reinvest in the show. So we love your feedback. You can always reach us at mlsoulofdetroit@gmail.com. And Mark, what are people thinking about out there in the podcastosphere?
Are you talking about this email you gave me that I haven't read yet?
I was speaking exactly of that.
Why does he looking at me?
I don't know.
Because when it comes to flying by the seat of his pants, there is the Charles Lindbergh.
I wanted your approval.
Right to
is what
her.
I wanted.
You always have my approval. I have not mentioned your calves today. You've hid them from me, so I'm sorry.
Okay, Jessica writes, Mike, you write about corruption. Shawn writes about sports. Mark is sincerely a very keen observer. Oh, well, that's polite.
Yeah, you are.
Sunday and Monday, NFL rigged was a top trend on Twitter after a bizarre NFL game, especially with the intersection of gambling apps and sports. How come nobody in journalism writes genuinely about the topic of cheating and rigging games? If even to juice the entertainment value like reality TV or WWE wrestling, why is there this dismissive pushback that swinging and influencing games is akin to a QAnon conspiracy? ML has written extensively about politicians, doctors, lawyers, etc. throwing their life away for peanuts, so I pretend sports are beyond reproach. Boxing is notoriously rigged. UFC is clearly rigged, and the recent World Cup selection was rigged. Miami Dolphins owner Stephen Ross was caught red-handed being a tax cheat and shamelessly offered $100,000 to his coach to swing games, to lose intentionally. And if read up on the history of the NFL, the original owners were a clique of mobsters and bootleggers, rigging games and laundering money, etc. Are the current owners that far removed? It really doesn't seem like it. And then a little post here says, I nor my husband gamble, and we do not care about any of the 4 teams that played last weekend.
Wow. Well, we know why Shawn's not writing about Stephen Ross.
Do you care to address
I
it, Shawn?
wrote about him. I hammered him last year. Was it last year or 2 years ago? Absolutely hammered him. I don't remember why. It had something to do with Harbaugh.
Do you want to address the email?
No, you go first.
I think it would be very hard. Well, let's just stick with the NFL, a team sport where you have 11 guys on the field. I think it'd be very hard to rig a game or even have the officials rig a game. There'd be too many people in my mind that would have to keep quiet. Point shaving, which has happened in basketball, Boston College, Arizona State, and Toledo had a football issue. There's a handful of examples. These people always get caught. It seems to be happening less now because the amount of money athletes make far outweigh any kind of kickback they would get.
The incentive isn't there in the way to the last.
But why do they do endorsements? Because you can never have enough money.
That's
right?
fair. That's fair.
And there was the NBA ref who was involved.
I was just going to mention him, Tim Donahue.
That guy drives me nuts. But go ahead.
But so he was part of the Western Conference Finals between Sacramento Kings and the LA Lakers. And was it 2002, I want to say. And the Kings were a little bit better team that year. And there are a couple of those games that he was a part of where a lot of calls went against the Kings. Yep. And I don't know if you remember back in those days, Mike, but the Lakers had the 2 biggest stars in the sport. And Kobe and Shaq. And that league, more than any other, is driven by star power. So was Donahue in cahoots with some larger force that wanted to see Kobe and Shaq in the finals for television ratings, which equates to more ad dollars, et cetera, or was he just getting paid on his own to try to influence something? Who knows? I don't know. That's the last time I remember anything that would sound legitimate.
The Ross thing, for what I understand, was never really substantiated. They really couldn't nail him too hard on that, the offer of the money to throw games. But I will say this, they penalized him harshly. Calvin Ridley lost a whole season for playing like FanDuel, individual betting. The punishments are very, very harsh. So to the idea, ML, that, you can never have enough money, to me, that's kind of, it's a big penalty for a very small thing to do. I don't think they can make that much money. That's just the way I feel about it. They're so ultra focused on the integrity of the game. And when they say that, they mean to prove that it's not rigged. They don't care about, a guy dying on the field or being paralyzed or CTE.
I mean,
I won't say they don't care. They care to a far less extent because they know gambling is what moves the sports, and people don't gamble if they think it's rigged.
If it were rigged last year, Mahomes would be in the Super Bowl. You know, if the NBA were rigged, the Spurs would not have won 5 titles, right? I mean,
sure.
They were the lowest draw in the league.
Now, boxing and UFC, yeah, because you have one individual.
Exactly.
On a one-off event.
Especially for lower level matches
Sure.
where the money's not there,
Sure.
right?
I
Go down. Everybody remembers Pulp Fiction. You're going to go down in whatever round it was.
Yep. I just think it's a lot.
If he pops up in a bowl of rice and Indochine, you know, I want you to pop a cap in his ass. Was that the idea?
Something like that.
In regards to how the World Cup is chosen, absolutely rigged through kickbacks and bribes. I mean, but does that ruin the integrity of the World Cup and how it was played?
By the way,
I don't think so. I thought it was a really good tournament this year.
By the way, speaking of Pulp Fiction.
Oh, okay, that's what we're talking about. Yeah.
Sorry.
So to get rid of Justin's email. Thanks, Justin.
Speaking of Pulp Fiction,
I thought we were speaking
and your
of tacos.
Anglophilia. The show,
and fish fillet sandwiches.
And fish fillet sandwiches. The show, The Last Tango in Paris, that takes place in Northern England, is weirdly studded with probably 15 Reservoir Dog and Pulp Fiction references. It's odd how you find this little neck at the corner of the world, and there's the American influence. Anyway, I don't know why.
I'm completely confused. But
Yeah.
I think on the gambling issue, I don't know whether corporations control how we could get to that. But yeah, hey, Punchy.
Is that what you said? I know. Weren't those great? Those were my favorite little moments of that. Yeah.
When he sits, Travolta sitting next
Punchy,
to, hey, Punchy.
In the shorts.
Yeah.
I'm not your friend.
I love that there's two different conversations going on.
Hey,
right
friend.
now.
What?
Hey, friend.
But I do think one of the reasons
What you looking at,
why
friend?
people
Is that it?
gamble is for the rush.
Sure.
And I don't think it's always the money. And I think a guy like Pete Rose does it because it's another way for him to compete. And when he can't do it on the field.
And look at the penalty he was given.
All he needed to say was, I'm pretty fucking far from okay.
But we do have a lot of laws out there that everybody knows and understands. And if you violate them, you'll pay a tremendous price. But people break the law every day because it's not that they willfully want to expose themselves to punishment. It's because they can't help themselves because there's something driving them. Maybe it's need or hunger or just that little jolt. They have to compete. And when you see those commercials with Jamie Foxx where he's making movies and he's there with Kevin Garnett and stuff, they're competing on who's winning something. It's just another playing field. It's another way to be on top. And I think
there's a major continuity error in one of his ads, by the way.
Oh, is it?
Well, there's one where he's like, it's supposed to be filming a scene, but of course he gets the alert that the team won. And it's bright out. They're not playing in the middle of the day. That just bothered me. Sorry.
They're not on a Saturday even?
No, because they're not filming at that time.
Not a Sunday?
I don't know. I hate those ads so much. So I want to nitpick.
You hate Blue Laws too?
So
you hate America?
So no, you do. You're the one that watches all these Brit things.
I watch lots of American stuff too.
Shawn loves America. He loves to give lots of money to rich people so they can build stuff that never measures up to what we're promised.
The American way, baby.
It's not even real capitalism. But anyway.
They're going to throw you out of Ann Arbor. You better watch it.
So what? What does that have to do?
Hey, friend.
They're going to walk him out of there. It's like, this is the People's Republic. It's time for you to go.
What you looking at, friend?
I interrupted you. So you feel, ML, that it's very likely or possible that people are going to start throwing games or have been throwing games?
I think it is possible. It may already be happening. All you got to do is get one person in trouble. All you got to do is find one person in the same way that Christopher Walken found Johnny Depp in Nick of Time and he almost killed the president. Am I the only one who saw that movie?
But look
but speaking of Christopher Walken, the Sean Penn movie with Christopher Walken, one of the more underrated. Oh God, it was in the 80s. What was it, Mark? Help me out.
We're No Angels?
No, out of what Madonna does the theme
Madonna,
song.
Exactly.
Fantastic.
It's a great movie.
Fantastic.
And Chris Penn's in that too.
He is, in fact. Sean, Christopher Walken walks Chris Penn out and tells him a story about the dog is out. The wolves go out there and the dog's in heat and they tear that dog apart. And then Chris Penn realizes he's about to get killed and he goes, "Daddy!" And then
now I don't have to watch the movie.
Well, there's more to it. I mean, it's
I can hear that Madonna song. Anyway.
Yeah.
God.
Live to Tell.
That's
it.
it.
One of her better songs.
Yeah.
Is it Out of Bounds or Out of Sight?
That's not it. That's the good George. That's the Elmer
that's
Leonard.
George Clooney and Jennifer Lopez. But yes,
At Close Range.
Damn!
That's wow.
Finally,
synced up.
After 7 hours, we're on the same.
Up.
So now, Shawn, now that you're on a roll, how about your
Just read
feedback?
yours. Forget the last topic.
Synced up. Wait, what's the other topic?
What?
Oh, you have feedback.
There was like 20 of them at the same time. Go ahead.
All in the same. I don't know. Yeah, everybody cheats. How
There you
about that? Including the billionaires.
It brings
who
us
are
back to the
fucking over the
development.
city. Shawn, I have a question I don't know how to ask other than here, and I hope you see it. When training camps begin, who do you think will be QB for the Niners? I guess this is from Herman.
That's easy.
Tom Brady.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
I have no idea, Herman, but Tom Brady.
You think so, really?
I don't know. Brock Purdy's out, I heard
Christian
the other day,
McCaffrey?
for 6 months, right?
6
He
months,
tore
yeah.
a ligament in his elbow.
CL. Yep.
So 6 months. So I'm doing the math. What is that, July?
Yeah, I'm sure he means, is it going to be Brock Purdy
So
or
he'd be
Trey
back for
Lance?
So he'll be back for training camp. Miss all the OTAs and all the other stuff.
If it's just those two, it'll be a wide open competition, right?
Yeah.
It's not going to be anointed back to Trey
dude,
Lance.
Purdy showed a lot. Why would you go away from him if he's healthy in July? I mean, yeah, I'm sure that you need some insurance.
You know the answer to that.
Why?
Because NFL teams, when they invest in somebody, they want to make sure it really isn't going to work, and that would be Trey Lance. I mean, Garoppolo's gone without a doubt.
Yeah, maybe, or maybe they trade Lance.
Possibly, but who wants him?
I don't know. Good question. I don't know.
I think it should be
Tom Brady.
It should be Tom Brady
Or Aaron Rodgers.
Oh God.
Mr. Irrelevant versus Mr. Invincible. That would be, or Mr. Indefatigable.
You're probably not a Brady guy because he's a Michigan guy, right?
No, I have a lot of admiration for Tom Brady, and like most great Wolverines, he was not given his due at the time. They went for the shiny object. They went for our boy from Brighton.
They did.
He was pretty good too.
He was. They couldn't make up their mind. But, okay, well, thank you for your feedback. You can always reach us at mlsoulofdetroit@gmail.com. Want to draw your attention to a couple things. My latest... Pardon me?
Palooka.
My latest column about Tony Morocco, the Macomb County corruption kingpin. I'd written a couple weeks ago that the feds were cutting him a huge break and that they were essentially, to win a conviction, pretending that he wasn't as bad as they really believe that he was. And this happens all the time, but this seemed to be a very extreme case. Well, I went to court last week to see him get sentenced and to see what the judge was going to do. And the judge immediately says, okay, you're not telling me everything about this guy, what's going on, and decided to delay the sentencing for a month after it looked like the deal was going to fall apart. So you can check out my column and, of course, Shawn's work in the free press at freep.com. I think we're running some ridiculous deal where you can get 3 months subscription for $1. So please check it out. And you can also see J.C. Reindel's work there and a lot of other good watchdog journalism.
And Mark, when he joins the Carlos and Shawn podcast.
Oh, we'd love to have
that's right.
Mark and Carlos and Shawn. And that would bring something, that would bring, I mean, in a more custodial road.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah, sort of setting some guardrails for...
some boundaries. Making it interesting.
Me?
Making it interesting.
I love boundaries.
Yeah, it's boring. So
No, oh, geez, well, you really know how to sell it. So the other thing I want to do is invite you to donate to Clark Park. We had our hockey game a couple weeks ago. My team won this year, which is great because it doesn't always happen. But we are a long way from reaching our fundraising goal. So we ask you guys for money every week for various causes, mostly for ourselves. I want to provide an incentive here. If you go to Patronicity and look for Clark Park and make a donation, you will be invited to a VIP whiskey tasting at Thomas McGee's Sporting House and Whiskey Bar in Eastern Market. You and a friend can come, sample some whiskeys, learn about the differences in the whiskeys, and then hang out for a night at the bar to raise money for the park, have a good time. You'll get an invitation to that. If you make a donation, go to our website, mlsoulofdetroit.com, and you will find a link to Shawn's work, my work, JC's work, and to the Patronicity fundraiser to support Clark Park. So we would really love it if you could come join us. It's a great time, and it is, of course, a great cause.
you know what I did yesterday?
Oh my God, what?
Had a fillet of fish at the taco place.
I wrote a column.
Watched old
I
British TV
wrote a
shows.
column. Yeah, I have a fascinating life. I wrote a column about the Lions in relation to the playoffs.
Sure.
And I mentioned Joe Burrow, who's the quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals. Sure. In my head, I was thinking, oh, Burrows, possessive Burrows. So that's how I spelled his name with an S, and I referred to him 8 times. And I know that because a reader pointed out that I spelled his name with an S wrongly 8 times. Have you ever had the same error in a single little 20-inch nothing column?
No, I'm a professional journalist, so that has not happened to me.
They don't have editors?
He missed it. And I saw it early this morning and quickly went online and fixed it. But that doesn't fix the print.
Are you going to issue a correction?
Oh, we don't do that.
Are you doing issuing a correction?
We used to call them straights, right? We don't do that anymore.
Why not?
I don't know.
We do correct errors, but
if they're big enough, I guess. But folks have come to expect so many typos in what we do because we really don't have many copy editors anymore.
The worst thing you can do, you can make all kinds of mistakes. The worst thing you can do is make a mistake involving statistics in a sports story because everybody out there is, no. Gretzky had this many goals in this many games. You didn't include the WHA games or when he was with the Indianapolis Racers. And you're like,
I felt like such a fool. I haven't had that kind of error. I mean, it's one thing to have a little typo that slips through.
I got news for you. I bet you a lot of people didn't even notice.
Well, the inbox said otherwise.
How many did you get?
I don't know, 7 or 8.
No,
did you get anything from Kelsey?
Ugh,
no.
I'm so sick of those two.
He's very focused on Mr. Burrow.
And Cincinnati mayor, right?
Yeah.
Called him a jabroni.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's wrong with jabroni? Somebody sent me an email when I was at Fox 2 basically saying,
you were a jabroni?
Yeah, what are you doing messing with this jabroni? And so I responded, I said, what's your problem, pal? And it turned out it was a guy sending an email to his girlfriend who had told him something about something I'd done on Fox 2. And I don't know if he was mad about it or like, what are you doing watching some other guy on TV or what? But he sent this message to her, but in mistake sent it to me. And so we had this big conversation about jabroni. And it was fine.
Not to be confused with Joe Taboni, who owned Joe Star Lounge, which was kind of a, beloved rock and roll venue in Ann Arbor back in the 80s that got all sorts of acts and so forth.
Yeah, no one was confused about that.
Ann Arbor Townie.
Yeah, no one's even thinking about that.
You didn't. That was after you, I think, in your time there, Joe Star Lounge.
Sure. I don't know what you're talking about anymore.
Ann Arbor. I thought you were an Ann Arbor historian.
No, I haven't lived there in a long time.
I cooked at the Fleetwood.
Yes, I do. Yeah. Okay. Is that gone?
No, it's still there.
Oh.
Speaking of gone, we should probably be gone. Anything you want to tease us with the
yeah? What are you going to misspell next time?
The turgid podcast that you produced with the dynamic Carlos.
Why don't you just say boring?
Because you already said boring. I was trying to build on it.
Yeah. Uninteresting. Yeah. No, Carlos is interesting. I just am there to hold us water. Anyway, no. Let's get out of here.
The worst.
Mark,
I just want to go.
Make your on-air resignation, or are we going to do that? Are we going to do that privately?
Why do you say the worst? Because I'm not standing?
What? So lost.
And yelling.
We'll be back next week with another episode of ML Soul of Detroit. Until then, Cyrus, take us out.
Can you dig that?
Can you dig it? Can you